International Association of Universities help universities work towards enabling the Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved?
This is the proper question for an association like the International Association of Universities, because the engagement of universities from around the world with sustainable development is actually speaking to the core of what the association itself stands for. The association was created in 1950, and back then it was already working towards fostering strong, meaningful, and inclusive higher education cooperation around the world. And that's what we do when it comes to sustainable development as well. The aim of the IAU is to contribute to peace, to human development, to promote and enhance the power of higher education, to develop and transform lives, and to build capacity, connect diverse peoples. And the word diverse is here very important because we do value diversity and the inclusion of very many different forms of knowledge and sharing that knowledge. The generation and the dissemination of new knowledge, the creation of insights, and the need to find solutions and new solutions to local and global challenges. So we advocate for all this. We advance dynamic leadership in higher education. We advocate and articulate the fundamental values and the principles upon which to build strong higher education systems. And that's where we connect with the Magna Carta Observatory as well, the whole value-based dimension of higher education. And the Magna Carta was at the heart of the letter of commitment of the fundamental values that universities subscribe to when they join the IAU. So the connections are strong there. We lead and advocate for the development of policies and practices to advance better higher education. And we are a think tank and a forum for the development of new approaches and undertaking of joint action. And this translates to very well when we talk higher education and research for sustainable development. Because ever since the Brundtland report was adopted in the early 90s, we do foster strong engagement of higher education leadership with the sustainable development dynamics. They were not called goals at the beginning, but the whole idea of really fostering a sustainable future, very inclusive for everyone around the world, was at the heart of everything that we did. So we organized all kinds of workshops initially with the members of the board and with the members at large of the higher education community that the IAU represents. And we developed and adopted two strong policy statements. Our first one in 93, the Kyoto Declaration, which was to really call for reinforced attention of higher education leadership to the importance of sustainable development and what that would mean at higher education level. And we reiterated that commitment in 2014 when we drafted and developed and adopted a policy statement, then named the Iquitos Statement because it was drafted in Peru, and then became the backdrop of the declaration that UNESCO adopted at the UNESCO World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development. So these two policy statements have translated in a lot of action as well, not only words, but practice and how we engaged the community around the world with the topic. So we mapped what was happening and we realized that higher education has done a whole lot, even if they did not always call it sustainable development initiatives or engagement. They did contribute a lot to developing the kind of societies in which we all want to live for better future. So we mapped these initiatives. We developed an IAU global portal on higher education and research for sustainable development. We started linking up universities around this topic, virtually and physically. We did a lot of research that we shared for free around the world, and which was picked up by many. We developed capacity building initiatives around how to engage with the Sustainable Development Goals. What does it mean if you have a history class or if you have a physics class, or if you engage in environmental studies, what does higher education for sustainable development actually mean, and how do you translate that in education, in research, in campus initiatives or community engagement activities? And we share a lot of knowledge. And so when strategic plans are being developed at institutional level, we share that with others, we connect the dots, and we always are very careful to also stress the fact that no model is to be replicated just like that, but the models have to be taken into consideration, adopted, and certainly adapted. So the working groups that we've developed around the topic higher education and research for sustainable development has evolved over time, as it was composed of members of the board who rotate every 4 years. We have a new board. But around that, we also work with many experts from around the world, from the West Indies to Canada to Sweden or France or Malaysia, China, Japan, to Kenya or South Africa. We really connect the world. And so that's where we decided, when the Agenda 2030 was adopted and the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted alongside the UN Agenda 2030, we decided to develop an IAU global cluster on higher education and research for sustainable development. Issued a call for universities from the 5 continents to volunteer, to lead on all these different SDGs. And their first assignment was to build around themselves a network, a subcluster of satellite universities to address particular issues. I could give the example of Tsukuba University working on SDG 11, or the University of Bergen working on SDG 14, life below water, or the issue of clean water and sanitation led by the University of Tehran in Iran, the University of Bologna picking up on SDG 5 on gender equality, or 4, York University in Canada. And around them, they work with up to 10 to 15 universities each time, again, from the 5 different continents. So when I said initially, yes, we want to build strong communities of practice and provide for the opportunities for the leadership of higher education from around the world to come together, to network, to exchange. I think that's the forte of the International Association of Universities, and we're very pleased to see that where we started very small, we now have an incredibly active and dynamic group of higher education universities everywhere in the world, very much committed and engaged with the topic of HCSD.